Good evening, everyone. This is Alicia Geerlings, and welcome to the Pennsylvania Conservative Women's PAC. And our evening today, we have a special guest. We have Lou Barletta with us, and he is going to tell us his plan for the governor's position, should he get it, and all the good things that he has in store for us. So thank you so much. A reminder that at the end of this, we will have a Q&A. So if you just want to type in your questions in the chat box, we will get those, read them out, and then he is glad to answer for us. Okay? Thanks for coming.
Thank you. Thank you all for inviting me, and it's great to be here. I thought what I'd do is give you just a little background on myself and why I've decided to run for governor, and some of the things that I stand for. But it all really goes back to the very beginning. I never liked politics growing up. I actually wanted to play center field for the New York Yankees. That was my goal. My family was in the road construction business. I really believed that I would spend my life, in the family business, as my brothers and cousins did. However, I was the first to go to college in my family. Went to Bloomsburg to study elementary education. I had an opportunity while I was there to try out for the Cincinnati Reds. Married my wife, Mary Grace, while we were in college. Left school, went down to Florida, played baseball. Cincinnati said that I could not hit a curveball. That was a problem for them, so they sent me home. Went back to the family construction business. It was really a low point for me at that point because I felt like I had failed at everything I wanted to do. Went to college and didn't graduate. Went to play baseball, didn't make it. Ended up back in the family business. My wife and I have 4 daughters. We had 2 by this time. Remember getting a postcard in the mail, actually, for $29.95. You can stripe your own parking lot, paint lines in your parking lot. Kept the card in my drawer, desk drawer, and one day went home, told my wife about the great idea I had. I was going to quit my job, and we were going to start a line painting business. I joked that she should have left me that day. She said, what do you know about line painting? I said, not much. Yellow in the middle, white on the edges. She said, we don't have any money. How are we going to start a business? We weren't even living paycheck to paycheck. We were living paycheck to Wednesday. And I knew she was going to say that. And I showed her the little postcard for $29.95. And I actually started, quit my job. And for $29.95, you get a case of aerosol cans and a little machine to put it in, put the cans in. And didn't take me long to realize that I wasn't even sure it was legal what we were doing. So I walked into a local bank, told them about my big idea. We needed a real paint machine. Again, I was like 24 years old. I had nothing. I didn't have any collateral. I didn't own anything. And I walked out with a $2,500 line of credit, which was enough for me to buy a real paint machine. And that wouldn't happen today. I tell that story because that wouldn't happen today. You couldn't be someone who you think you have a good idea and just walk into a bank and get any kind of line of credit. But that little machine, we made some money, bought another machine, bought a truck, bought another truck. And in 5 years, our business grew to be the largest in the state of Pennsylvania. And when we sold the business, when I became mayor of Hazleton, it was the 6th largest of its kind in the country. And it literally was the American dream come true. And it was during that time that I saw the politics in Hazleton was not good for business environment. Mayor and council fought all the time. And I thought business or government should run like a business. And I told the politicians that. They told me I was naive to go home. I got mad, ran for city council. Once I was on council, I realized I disliked politicians even more than I thought I disliked them. I needed to be mayor. Ran for mayor of Hazleton. Hazleton was a city that was 2-to-1 Democrat. I was a Republican. They told me that I needed to change my party if I wanted to be mayor, which I did not. And I won by a 2-to-1 margin. When I ran for re-election, I won by a 4-1 margin. When I ran for my third term, I won with 90% of the vote. The city was bankrupt when I took over. We had a massive deficit, illegal contracts with the labor unions. In 2 years, I was able to wipe out the deficit. We had a $500,000 surplus. People were moving back into the city, and I was named by my peers as Pennsylvania Mayor of the Year, something that I was very proud of. During that time, we had a problem. Our population grew by 50%, but our tax revenue stayed the same. We realized we had a problem for whatever reason. We had a problem with illegal immigration. We're 2,000 miles away from the nearest southern border. It wasn't a city you would expect to have that kind of problem with. But I was faced with that, and I could not find anyone to help us. Our hospitals were affected. Our schools were affected. Gangs were recruiting children in 3rd and 4th grade. I went to Washington, December of 2005, met with the Department of Justice, asked for help. They were great, and they brought in all these experts, and finally they gave me a coffee mug, a nice lapel pin, pat on the back, sent me home. And I realized I was totally on my own. Very shortly after that, December 10th, 2006, a day I'll never forget, young man named Derek Kishline, 29 years old, father of 3 little children, was working on his pickup truck, and he had some words with Pedro Cabrera, who was head of the Latin Kings. And he told Cabrera he didn't want him selling drugs around his children. Cabrera, who was in the country illegally, arrested 5 times in New York and let go, goes in his car, gets a gun, sticks it between Derek's eyes, shoots and kills him. We spent half of our yearly budget in overtime in the police department in catching Cabrera and his buddy. And I sat with Mrs. Kishline when she asked, why is my son gone and this man was still in the country? Why is the father of my grandchildren gone forever and this man is still here? And I had enough at that point. Nobody was going to help me. I took an oath of office that I would protect and defend the people in my community. And I did just that. I wrote the first law in America dealing with the problem of illegal immigration, was sued by illegal immigrants, and was thrust on a national stage and fought it all the way to the Supreme Court. Went on to Congress and served in Congress for 8 years. Was very proud for some of the things that I was able to accomplish there. Seeing the children while I was mayor being recruited into gangs, I wanted to do something to try to help stop and prevent that, and realize that so many kids were dropping out of school, and nothing good happens to a child when they drop out of school. They become easy targets for the gangs. I found an after-school program in Carbon County that literally was changing the lives of children. These were children who were on a path of not succeeding in school. And over a 10-year period that this program, after-school program, had been in place, the class participation of the kids that went to the after-school program went up over 85%. Their class attendance went up over 85%, and their graduation to the next grade went up over 85%. It was literally changing the lives of these children. I sat on the Education and Workforce Committee and in Congress, and they were going to wipe out after-school funding across America. And I single-handedly fought to get that funding put back in. For that, I was named Legislator of the Year for saving after-school programs in America, something that, again, that I'm very, very proud of. I have to tell you, I was very disappointed while I was in Congress. I felt that most people there were really politicians who were talking a lot, but we weren't getting the things done that we promised the American people. And I was one of the first in Congress to endorse Donald Trump. And the reason for that was I didn't want another politician. I wanted to put an executive in the executive office. Became very close to him during that campaign and co-chaired his campaign here in 2016, was on his transition team when he won, and was actually the runner-up for Secretary of Transportation. It came down to me and Elaine Chao. And if I only married Mitch McConnell, I would have had that job. But I was glad to glad to stay in Congress. The president had asked me to run for Senate in 2018, which I did and was unsuccessful, and was finally able to go home after a long career and enjoy my 10 grandchildren and 4 daughters. And then the pandemic happened, and I began screaming at the TV every night. And my wife said, "We cannot live the rest of our lives with you screaming at the TV like this. Either shut the TV off or get off your butt and do something." And I realized after thinking about it that I have 14 good reasons to run for governor of Pennsylvania, my 10 grandchildren and 4 daughters. I felt that I gave us the best chance to win because of my experience in running statewide, having statewide name ID. Um, to win as a Republican statewide in Pennsylvania, you need to get Democrats to vote for you. I have a history of beating Democrats in elections. And I felt, if not me, then who? So, the decision became very easy that, even though I thought I was going to enjoy the rest of my life, I could not sit and watch what was happening to Pennsylvania and our country, and realized, we can protect ourselves. We can do this one state at a time. The enormous amount of protection and that a governor can give us from some of the very liberal ideas that are, made me scream at the TV every night. We can prevent that. We can prevent a lot of that stuff. We can open up our economy. Bring good jobs back. We were blessed with all this natural gas here in Pennsylvania. Having that under our feet and not building pipelines to get that gas to the market is like it's like being in college and having a keg of beer and not a tap. What good is it? These are good jobs that we can bring manufacturing back here to Pennsylvania, and Pennsylvania is not business friendly. We have, some of the highest taxes in the country. Right now, DEP stands for Don't Expect Permits. Our agencies are used to actually, hurt businesses and cost businesses money. And when businesses leave Pennsylvania, what leaves with them is our children and our grandchildren. And, most people, would love to see their grandchildren grow up, me being one of them. So we're going to get our economy going again. I believe in the rule of law, obviously. I am going to stand with our law enforcement, with our men and women who protect us every day. I saw firsthand as mayor, what they do every single day to keep us safe. We want to live in safe neighborhoods. I am going to protect and help our veterans. Any soldier that slept on a desert in Afghanistan should not sleep under a bridge here in Pennsylvania. And we're going to make sure we take care of our veterans. I also, we need to bring integrity back to our elections. We know dead people have been voting in Pennsylvania for a long time, but now they don't even have to leave the cemeteries to vote. They can just mail in their ballots. We've got to bring integrity back to our elections. And that's something that I'm going to stand for. Education will be a key. If we want to lift people out of poverty, if we want to give children a better life and a better future, it's through education. And no parent should be stuck having their children in a failing school. We're going to give those parents their choice. And I resent the comments that were made in Virginia that parents don't have a say in their children's education. They have every say. And we're going to bring that power back to the parents. Our teachers should be teaching children how to think, not what to think. And they will not be teaching critical race theory to our children. When I'm governor of Pennsylvania, we are not going to teach our children to hate each other. We're going to teach them to love this country. We're going to teach them the history of it and to love it. It's very simple. I'm going to bring common sense back to the Commonwealth, and we're going to be a freedom-loving state again. So I think I'm going to stop there for now because I'm sure there'll be a lot of questions that I could explain my other positions. I'm pro-life, pro-God, pro-gun, pro-freedom, pro-America.
That's all very good. We like all of that. I have a couple questions for you. And the first one is, what is Mr. Barletta's view on the vaccine mandate? Will he take it and mask mandate? Will he take the mask off our kids?
So, when I said that how I was yelling at the TV every night, what I was yelling at was how Governor Wolf mismanaged the pandemic, picking and choosing what businesses to open, what businesses had to close. You can buy a bicycle at Walmart, but you couldn't buy a bicycle at the local bike shop. What gives a governor that kind of power? Well, that was only the beginning of the power that this governor was going to take. Again, keeping our children out of school for a year, stealing a year's education from our children. Even though science didn't back that decision, we don't know the long-term effects on our children for that. And then putting COVID positive seniors back into the nursing home when we knew our seniors were the most vulnerable of all of our folks here. 50% of our deaths came from those nursing homes. A governor does not have the right, and I will not, as governor, mandate that people have to take a vaccine. That's a personal choice. That's a personal decision. Many people, they got COVID and they feel that they have the natural immunities now. They shouldn't be forced to quit their job because they didn't want to take a jab. We shouldn't force our kids to wear a mask all day in school. That's not the governor's position. The governor does not have that kind of power, and I will not ever use that kind of power on our people. I believe that you know better of how to protect yourself. If you want to get vaccinated, that's fine. That's your decision. If you don't, that's your decision. I am not going to force people to wear a mask or to mandate that they must take a vaccine or lose their job.
Excellent. Thank you. Another question was about schools as well. What are we going to do with all the COVID pandemic lost children, quote unquote, of Pennsylvania? They've lost almost, by this point, it's almost 2 years of education, and we're really falling behind. What are your suggestions for that? How can we move that?
Yeah, let's keep them in school. Let's keep them learning. I mean, that's the best way not to lose children. But you know what else? How else we've lost children during COVID? This was amazing. So many children were lost because they didn't have access to the internet. So when we were doing at-home learning, many of these kids or their parents just didn't, make sure that they logged on. And some of these kids, after COVID, after the kids went back to school, many of them never showed up again. Many were lost. I know in the Hazleton Area School District, at one point they lost 4,000 students. They don't know where they went, whether they moved out of state or whatever they did. So the best way to keep them in school is not to close the school in the first place.
Excellent. Let me see here. So what did you spoke a little bit about it, but somebody would like you to expand your views on CRT and the DEI and all these other things that are going on.
Yeah, again, you don't have to reinvent the wheel. I found out that you can look at best practices many times for the answers to the tough questions. Like, how do you stop critical race theory? How do you stand up to school boards? And in many of these schools, by the way, they won't admit that they're teaching critical race theory. And the only way we found out, I mean, if there was one good thing about COVID, is that we were able to find out what was being taught to our children because we were seeing it at home. But I'm looking at many of the things that Ron DeSantis, I served with Ron in Congress. I'm looking at many of the things that he's doing. And actually Kristi Noem right now, she also is doing some things in South Dakota with Dr. Ben Carson to prevent and actually teach 1776 education to our children, and signing a pledge, which I will do, that I will do everything. And I actually have a pledge with parents that if you go on my website, you will see it, a pledge to our parents. of the things that I'm going to do to protect our children in their schools and their education, and make sure that you have the power, you have the say. We see their curriculum. That's how we're going to know. The pledge will allow parents to see the curriculum, see the textbooks, review the lesson plans of what's being taught to our children, so there are no surprises any longer. That the parents have that power, and that's at the top, because like I said, I want Pennsylvania to be a place where people want to come because of the freedoms we're going to give them.
Great. Excellent to that. How can the Republican Party get ahead of this election? It's only 9 months away. And with regarding to the mail-in ballots and everything, what can we do? You know, Act 77, et cetera, et cetera. How can we fix this quickly?
Yeah, Act 77. I wish we never had it. It was just, that's what created this whole problem for us in the first place. Why we thought that somehow giving Democrats access to mail-in ballots was not going to turn out bad. I don't know. The best way we can get rid of it, as you know, is to elect a Republican governor who will repeal it, which I will. So that's the best way we can get rid of it. I will repeal Act 77. We've got to put pressure on our legislators to do something to try to secure our elections until then, whether it's voter ID, chain of custody, signature matching, try to stop ballot harvesting, any way that fraud could be committed. We have to do the best we can, and hopefully the legislature can do something before the election to secure that until hopefully myself becomes governor and I can repeal Act 77.
Okay. Let's see. There's a question about it was a tough race with Bob Casey Jr. for Senate, and it's going to be a tough race for governor. What lessons did you learn, and what are you going to do differently this time?
So I'm glad you asked about 2018, because a lot of people talk about that election and they say, well, you lost to Bob Casey. Well, first of all, the Casey name in Pennsylvania is like a Kennedy in Massachusetts. Some people they don't know, they still think they're voting for his dad. The Casey name has been on the ballot for so long. Pennsylvania is a tough state for a Republican to win statewide, because there are so many more Democrats. There are 600,000 more Democrats than Republicans. And sometimes you need to run once statewide to build up your name ID. Bob Casey Sr. lost the first time he ran statewide. Arlen Specter lost the first time he ran statewide. Pat Toomey lost the first time he ran statewide. So sometimes doing that actually builds your name ID where you're in the best position to win the next time. And I think that's the case with me in this election. It will cost the other candidates at least $7 million to build their name ID where mine already is. So I don't need to raise as much money as they do, because I have that name ID statewide. But what I also learned is that you can't win Pennsylvania unless you get Democrats and independents to vote for you, because there's 600,000 more Democrats. I have a history of beating Democrats. As I told you, as the mayor of Hazleton, winning 3 times, the last time with 90% of the vote of a Democrat city, beating a 26-year Democrat incumbent for Congress in a congressional district that was 2-1. I beat him by 10 points. Running the first time against Bob Casey, although I was outspent by $14 million, I won 54 of our counties, including 8 of the 10 in northeastern Pennsylvania, where Casey lives, and getting over 2.1 million votes. And to give you a little background on the 2018 election, reflecting on it now, it was probably, it was the toughest election I've ever had in my life. I have 10 grandchildren, as I told you. Two of them are a set of twins. It was during that campaign, we found out my grandson Jordan, at the age of 16 months old, had cancer. He had a rare childhood cancer, very serious rhabdomyosarcoma. And I got to tell you, my family was devastated over that. My daughters, who all hoped to be an asset to me in the campaign, and my wife, obviously, the campaign was secondary to all of that. If that wasn't enough for me, 2 weeks after we found out about my grandson, my brother passed away. So to tell you where my heart was, you can imagine it wasn't in hotel rooms where I was campaigning for Senate. But in spite of that, in spite of the personal issues that we had then, a lot of good came out of it. People found out about Jordan having cancer, and they began putting him on prayer lists all over Pennsylvania. People began praying for Jordan. I could tell you, Jordan is 4 years old today and cancer-free right now. And I believe if it wasn't for those prayers, that never would have happened. It also put me in a great position to win this election because I have the statewide name ID. I have the experience, again, as a businessman, successful, as a mayor named Pennsylvania Mayor of the Year. I was actually recognized by the White House on a United Nations advisory board for local authorities. Every country selects one mayor in the country to represent them on a United Nations board. I was picked by the White House for my work as mayor of Hazleton to represent the United States, something I'm very proud of. So I can govern. I have experience governing. I've been successful. I can beat Democrats. I've been on a national stage. The media could not push me around. When I stood up, one of the first in the country as a mayor of a small town standing up against illegal immigration, you can imagine the names that were called at me at that point. I had to wear a bulletproof vest for days. I couldn't go home the same way every night. I had to sleep with a shotgun under my bed, but I never backed down. The media could never get me to back down because right was right. And I was standing up for the people I represent. And I think that's exactly what people of Pennsylvania want today. They want somebody who's been tested, somebody who stood strong and never quit, never backed down no matter what, even though I didn't have staff like I do now. So I think I check every box that we need to put the best fighter in the ring. Statewide name ID, experience, been tested, and something else that's very, very important. I've been vetted. My background, I ran against Paul Kanjorski. He was a very tough guy to run against. And I could tell you, running against the Casey, they're very difficult politicians as well. There are no bones left in my closet. Anything that's ever happened in my life has been out. So there's no surprises for us as a party in October when they go through somebody else's life and they find something small that they make big out of at the end of October, which can cost us the election against Josh Shapiro. We can't take that chance. We can't have Josh Shapiro as our next governor. And I think I give us the best opportunity, the best experience, and the best fighter who's been on that stage before.
Yeah, sounds like you have a lot in your background there. But question, do you have Donald Trump's endorsement, you think?
I learned one thing: never speak for Donald Trump. Never speak for Donald Trump. I got to know him very, very well, as I said, being one of the first to endorse him. And I can tell you, in 2016, 2 weeks before the election, we were in Gettysburg, and we were backstage, and it was then candidate Trump. He came to me and told me that they wanted him to pull out of Pennsylvania, that he was 6 points down in the polls and sliding. And I begged him, I pleaded with him not to pull out of Pennsylvania. I told him he was going to win Pennsylvania. I told him how. I said, you're going to win big in northeastern Pennsylvania, and you're not going to lose by what they're telling you. You're going to lose in the southeast. And I said, please don't pull out. They want you to. Don't pull out. You're going to win. And he didn't. And he did win.
Mhm.
2 days after that, I got a call at midnight, 2 days after the election. I didn't answer it. I played it in the morning, and I still have it on my phone. It was the president. And he said, "Hey, Lou, it's Donald. Man, were you right?" Uh, so, I think, we'll see what he does. But I don't need, I don't need to. Many of the other candidates are going to try to show their relationship with the president. I don't need to. Everybody in Pennsylvania knows that. I was the pregame show for him on his rallies. I campaigned statewide on his bus tours for the president. Um, we've worked together very well, and so I think everyone knows where I stand with him and where he stands with me.
Do you think they'll use that against you, the other side?
Oh, of course, and I have the best counter to that. I'm going to use Joe Biden against Josh Shapiro.
Okay. Enough said there. I think that is all of our questions. You've answered or yeah, everything. So anything else, anybody? No, I think you've got it. Thank you so much for your time. We're very excited to have you tonight and good luck. And we'll be there,
Thank you.
and hopefully you'll be able to join us in March at our big event that we're having.
I'm looking forward to it. Thanks for having me tonight.
Thank you so much. Have a good evening.
Okay, you
Bye.
too.
Thanks.
Bye.